All right. So today we're talking about goals. Uh, let's kind of start from the beginning. Why set goals?
Yeah, so goal setting is really important. And what it does is it helps to give yourself a direction and a
Mhm.
vision for your future and the work that you're about to put in. Without goals, you're kind of just like going through the darkness and you're like, I think this is what I should be doing. I think I'm going in the right direction. It's really hard to know if you're actually making progress and moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
Another important aspect is they can help keep you motivated, and they can hold you accountable to your work. When you wake up and you know this is exactly what I need to do today, it's clear, it's written down, it's on my schedule, I've got it all planned out. That gives you that motivation of like, all right, let's do it. I know what I'm doing. It takes the clarity out of it, or it takes the lack of clarity out of it.
Mhm.
And it makes it very clear for you to know what you need to do, and it holds you accountable. Once you have it written down and you say, I want to do this by this date, you have that extra incentive and that push to know that like this is what I want to do. Also, if you communicate this and verbalize it to your teammates and your coaches and you let them know, hey coach, this is what I'm trying to do this year, they will help push you and they will help hold you accountable as well.
Right.
Another important area of goal setting that a lot of people don't really appreciate and understand is the impact that it has on your confidence. So if you're setting and accomplishing short-term goals on a consistent basis, and you're doing this every day, every week, every month, you're just knocking these goals out, you start getting this momentum and this feeling of like, dang, I'm doing it. I'm moving in the right direction. Like I set out to do this last week, I did it. This week I'm setting out to do this, I'm going to do that too. And when you start stacking those weeks on top of each other, you get this feeling that you're like a runaway train and you're like everything that I set out to do, I do. Like look at the past, look at what I've done, and that helps build your confidence like crazy. So goal setting is really important, and there's a ton of research to back it up, but you still don't see enough people doing it and
Mhm.
enough people doing it effectively, right? A lot of people will set goals, but what they think are goals, but they're very, vague and unclear, and it doesn't actually help them, right? And sometimes setting unclear goals can be counterproductive, right? It can hurt your motivation, it can hurt your confidence, and this happens a lot with athletes.
Right. Do you think that there's a danger in becoming too goal focused?
Some athletes they really don't vibe with the goals, and I think this is more of a personality thing. Um, they don't vibe with certain goals, right? And this is, I guess, kind of like a little teaser for what we're going to talk about at the end with the different types of goals. But some athletes really don't like these outcome based goals, and they like to focus more on their process as
Mhm.
opposed to saying, this is exactly what I want to happen. They like to just kind of leave that out, and they might be more free spirited. And instead, they want to just focus on their process or their performance, things that are more in their control. And
Right.
so, yeah, some athletes do give me some pushback on goal setting, and that's cool. I understand that. It's about kind of massaging it in and figuring out how to make it work for them.
Right. Okay. Um, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So talk about you have an acronym, SMART, all caps, SMART.
Yeah,
So define for me what SMART goals are.
yeah. So SMART goals is a really popular acronym. It's not one that I created, unfortunately, but I'm happy to use it. And this is an acronym to help goal setters to set effective goals, right? So if you're new to goal setting, if you haven't done it before, take this acronym and use it as you set your goals. And so what it stands for is S stands for specific.
Mhm.
So is my goal specific? Do I know clearly what I'm trying to accomplish? A lot of athletes don't do this, right? They go into their season and they're like, all right, this year I want to get better at soccer.
Right.
Okay, no kidding. Like, of course you want to get better at soccer, but what specifically do you want to get better at? There's
Mhm.
so many elements to that game. What specifically are you trying to focus on? So that's the first bit. The M stands for measurable, right? So is my goal measurable? Will I have a clear answer, yes or no, at the end of this? Did I accomplish it,
Mhm.
right? So let's say you do get a little more specific and you say, all right, I want to work on my kicking with my left foot. Well, is that measurable? Like, is that goal specifically measurable? Like, will you know at the end of the season, did you get better? Like, what if you go in one day and you just kick 3 times with your left foot? Like, did you get better? I mean, I guess technically, right? But was that exactly what you were looking for? Right? So having these metrics, and in sports, a lot of times it's like number of reps done with a certain drill or number of time spent doing a certain drill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having these metrics is really important. So you could say something like, every day after practice, I want to kick 20 balls with my left foot and 20 balls with my right foot. Now you've added the measurability to it, and
Right.
that makes it very clear, yes or no, did I accomplish this?
Right.
Okay. The
Right.
A stands for attainable. All right. So is my goal attainable with hard work and commitment? A lot of athletes mess this up and they make their goals either way too unrealistic. It's somebody who, isn't even a starter on their varsity team yet, and they're saying, I want to be all state.
Right. Yeah.
When you set goals like this, they have this counterproductive effect where you start going through the season and you start realizing there's no way in hell I'm going to achieve this goal.
Right.
And that kills your motivation. You get to the point to where you're like, well, why am I even trying then? I set out to accomplish this goal. There's no way I'm going to accomplish it. I might as well just give up now.
Mm-hmm.
That happens from setting goals that are too unrealistic. So you want your goal to be attainable with hard work and effort and commitment, but you don't want it to be too easy to where you're accomplishing it on the first week of the season and now you don't have anything else to push for. Right? So you want to challenge yourself, but you don't want to make it unrealistic. It's about finding that sweet spot, and it takes experience with goal setting to learn how to do this, and it takes self-awareness, right,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of athletes struggle with as well, to really know where point A is so you can figure out where point B needs to be.
Right.
Okay. The the R stands for relevant. So how relevant is this goal to my ultimate goal? So if I'm trying to play Division 1 soccer and I'm in high school right now, and I say, okay, I want to be able to bench press 350 pounds. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like that might help you in soccer, but is that really that relevant?
Right.
Or are you just getting strong to get strong? Like
Mm-hmm.
you've got to think about your goals and how aligned they are with your bigger goals, your long-term visions.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not aligned, they're not relevant and your time is not really being spent in the most efficient way. So you want what's called goal alignment to where as you're working on one goal, you're also working on your bigger goal and your goal that's bigger than that,
Right.
right? That way your work is super efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the T is timely, time based. Every goal needs to have a time stamp on it. I want to accomplish this by this date. If you don't put a date on it, you're just going to keep kicking it to the curb and keep pushing it off. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. I'll start my diet next, like it just keeps getting pushed off. That's human nature, right? So you have to put a time on it. And that again helps keep you accountable, keeps you locked in, keeps you motivated. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Those are the 5 areas that you want to hit when you're setting goals. And if you can knock out all 5 of those with your goal, you got a pretty good goal.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. So talk about the difference between, short-term goals, long-term goals. Like you kind of implied that there's layers of goals that you should set as an athlete. And so I'm imagining like some short-term goals feed into long-term goals in a lot of cases.
Yes, absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit with the goal alignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have these goals aligned. So while you're making progress on your short-term goal, you're simultaneously making progress on your long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes a lot of planning and organizing to make sure this works. But the analogy that I like to use for this is a GPS. Or, for us, we know what it's like to have to, go onto MapQuest and print out directions and you
Right.
get it all printed out. And like, let's say, you're in Virginia, I'm in Louisiana. Let's say you wanted to drive to Louisiana. Now, you could do this without any directions, right? You have your long-term goal. It's set out. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get to Louisiana. That's my goal. And this is what most athletes do. They have their long-term goal for the season, right? I want to win state. I want to be all state. I want to go Division 1. Like they have these long-term goals, but they have no idea how they're going to get there.
Right.
that makes it really challenging. Like if you get in your car and you're like, I want to drive to Louisiana, but you don't know any of the steps to get there, you might get here. It might just take you a really long time.
Right.
You might know, okay, I'm pretty sure I have to go south, so let me just start driving south, and maybe I'll get there. And then you get all the way to the end of Florida, and you're like, okay, this isn't it. Now where do I go? Right? And you might eventually find your way to Louisiana, but it's not going to be as efficient and just in the most optimal way.
Right.
So what you want to do is create these steps all the way through, right? Just like what happens with MapQuest when you print out your GPS directions, it tells you when you pull out of your driveway, take a right. When you get to the stop sign, take a left. Drive for a mile, go through 2 red lights, and then get on the interstate. It's all very clear, and if I follow these steps, I'm going to get to Louisiana in the quickest time possible. And
Right.
it's no different with your long term goals. If you know what the end destination is, I want to win state, well, you need to figure out what are all the steps that I need to take so that I can win state,
Mhm.
right? And most athletes don't do this, and it makes it really hard to accomplish those goals, right?
Right.
So, yeah, thinking about it that way and like having the end goal in mind, but then you have to ask yourself, like, okay, well, what am I going to do today? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do this month? Like, you have to map it all out for yourself. And when you do, it becomes very clear. And now all you have to do is show up and go to work, right? And that's what a lot of athletes are good at, but they don't have their work aligned and focused. And that's what the planning and the goal setting does. And look, I get it. This is work. Like it takes time and effort to sit down and write all this stuff out. But it's worth the work. It's worth
Mhm.
the effort, and there's a lot of research to back this up. So, once you set this long-term goal, you then have to break it down into short-term goals, right? And you can think about it every month, every week, every day. What am I trying to do to get better?
Yeah. So what do you tell people like if they're, you know, they map out all this plan for short, they have their long-term goal out here and they have all these milestones, so to speak, as short-term goals. And they start working and they're really good, they're doing it every day and but it's just not working. Like when do you reevaluate the plan? Maybe one of the factors is that, wasn't attainable for you. So how do you coach people through that, and how do you determine when it's time to kind of pivot and maybe reevaluate your goals?
Yeah, so what you're talking about now is goal adjustment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And basically, the way that I like to think about it, the time to pivot, and you kind of hit on it, is when it's no longer attainable
Mm-hmm.
or you've already attained it.
Right, right, right.
So you're really looking at the attainability of the goal. And if you're going through the season and, you know, um, your goal was to be a full time starter, for at least half of the year, and you're at that halfway point and you're not a starter and you're probably not going to be a starter, well, you should change your goal, right? You can keep the goal the same, but now you're just working on an unattainable goal for the last half of the season, or you can adjust your goal and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now based on what's happened at the beginning of the season and where I'm at right now, what would be a new smart goal for me to set so that I can grow as much as possible in this last half of the season?
Right.
Okay. Another big thing that creates goal adjustment is injuries.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a goal that you want to be all state, but you tear your ACL at the beginning of the season, you're probably not going to be all state. That's okay. That's life. Now
Right.
you need to create a new goal to probably get yourself back to 100%, go through the recovery process, rehabilitate the injury, all that stuff. So, goal adjustment is really important. And a lot of athletes feel like it's a bit of cheating or like cutting corners, or they feel it's like dishonorable,
Right.
to adjust their goals. They're like, no, I set this, I have to see it through. And that's just not smart.
Yeah.
Like, already that it's not attainable or that this work isn't going to help you, then change it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You've got new information now. You've gotten feedback over the course of the season. Take that information and use it and create a new plan. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like in a football game, if an offensive coordinator has this plan for the game, and he's like, all right, we're going to run it down their throat. And they try to run it, and they try to run it, and it's just not working. Now, they can say, no, this is our plan. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Or they can take the feedback that they're given, adjust the plan, and start throwing the ball deep.
Right.
Like, it's okay to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing dishonorable. So adjusting goals is actually really smart and really important. But you've got to be able to check in with yourself throughout the process. Ask yourself, is this still an attainable goal? Is this still worth my time, or do I need to adjust it?
Right. And it's not, I think a lot of people would equate it with quitting
Yeah.
or, giving up or whatever. And it's not, that's probably not fair, being fair to yourself to say that, I changed my goal, therefore I quit.
Yeah.
So, quitting's a whole different thing, I guess, or giving up, or I think there's some semantics there in differentiating between quitting and giving up or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, don't fall into the trap of I'm a quitter just because you changed your goals, right? Is that fair?
Exactly. Yeah. Very fair.
Okay. Um, there's some other types of goals. Um, you started talking about it earlier. There's outcome, there's performance, and then there's process goals, right? So maybe define what an outcome goal is for us, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, so an outcome goal, these are like some of the most common goals that athletes set. These are goals that are based on the outcome of an event or the outcome of a
Mm-hmm.
season. So a goal like I want to win state this year,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to place top six in state, or I want to be all state, or I want to go Division One. Like these are all outcome goals. And ultimately, these are not in our control because the outcome is not in our control. And again,
Right.
this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast. And this is something that a lot of the athletes really struggle with is this illusion of control over the outcome, right? Athletes like to think if I do everything right, I am going to win 100%.
Right.
And that's just not the case. Like, if it was that simple, and if we knew a way to guarantee the outcome that you want, then the athletes I work with would win 100% of the time. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, everyone who knew this information would be able to win every single time, but that's just not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do everything right. I was working with a high school swimmer, and she just went out at her city meet and ran or swam personal best. She swam the best she ever had, and she still didn't win the race.
Right.
Like, that's okay. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You don't control the other athletes. You don't control your competitors. Sometimes they were just better than you, right?
Right.
But a lot of athletes just set these outcome goals and they say, I want to win. And when they don't win, they feel really bad about themselves,
Right.
even though they did the best that they've ever done. Right.
Right.
So those are outcome goals. They're out of our control. They're normally long term goals. And these can be really, really motivating. So this is the good part of it, right? It's not all bad. There's some good part of it. This is what motivates us, because this is like the prize at the end. This is what we want to win. And even winning itself is an outcome goal, right? So it's very motivating. It drives us. A lot of times when we wake up, it's the goal that we think about. They're like, yes, I want to be a state champion. Let me put in the work. And so it has that benefit. But if this is the only goal you have, you're going to get yourself into trouble. And so what you also need are performance goals and process goals. Okay, so performance goals would be goals based around your performance in a competition, right? So, what are your metrics that you're looking at to let you know that it was a successful performance or an unsuccessful performance, right? You could look at the outcome, or you could look at other things that you have control over, right? How was my communication? How was my effort? How was my attitude, right? These are all things that you have the ability to control when you perform, and you can focus on these things as opposed to the outcome goal. And when you focus on this, it actually gives you the outcome that you want more often than not, right? So those are performance goals, and these are really important going into competitions or performances to have these kinds of goals. And then your process goals are like your daily goals. What do you need to do every day? What's your process like? Right? Do you need to wake up on time? Do you need to eat a good breakfast? Do you need to hydrate? Do you need to stretch? What's your process like for training? right? Do you need to show up early and set a goal for training, have an intention or focus for training? Do you need to be mindful of your attitude? Do you need to be a good teammate? Like what is your process like in order to get the performance goal that you want, in order to get the outcome goal that you want? So all of these again are aligned,
Mm-hmm.
but when you take the time to go a little bit deeper and you don't just have the outcome, but you ask yourself, how do I want to perform? And then what's the process I need to stick to on a daily basis to get that performance, to get that outcome, or really to increase the chances of getting that outcome, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it also makes you more present. Like if you're focused on the thing that you have to take care of today with, you know, obviously the outcome is there, off in the distance or it's written down somewhere. But if you're just worried about your process and your performance, then it sounds like your outcome is gonna end up being better anyway, which I think you said. So, um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of like you set that outcome goal and it's great. You put it up on the wall and then you stop thinking about it. And
Hmm.
you say, "Okay, now let me shift my focus back to the present," like you said.
Right,
So,
right.
it's a mindful strategy and it brings you back engaged in the moment.
Hmm.
And it like another thing we talk about a lot is controlling the controllables,
Hmm.
right? Whatever your outcome goal is, you don't control that. I'm sorry, but you don't, you
Right,
know? And so it's good to have it. It's good to let it motivate you, but put it up there and forget about it and then come back to what you do have control over. That's
right.
your process. That's your preparation. That's your attitude, your effort, your diet, your recovery. These are all things that you actually do have control over. But a lot of times athletes are trying to control the uncontrollables and they're messing up the things that they do have control over. They're
Right.
like, man, why don't I win? I'm so focused on winning. Well, are you focused on your recovery? Are you sleeping properly? Are you eating properly? Like maybe focus less on winning and focus more on your process. And when you
Right.
can do that, like you said, you actually get the outcome you want more often than not.
Right. Okay. What do you think? Anything else to add?
Um,
Go on.
no, not really.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's stop it.